everybody. Welcome to Lacrosse Now. I am Tom Eschen. April Lacrosse is here, and it's spectacular. Travis Eldridge will join me to pick the biggest games of the weekend in just a little bit. We also expand our horizons with World Lacrosse Now. Always an interesting segment. But let's begin in the CAA, one of the more exciting matchups of the season. Pivotal in terms of the season standings, and a rematch all in one. Hofstra heading north to take on Umass. Let's get you to the standings to set the table for you. Delaware alone on top, untouched in CAA play. They take on Drexel in a huge one as well. More on that in a moment. Almost like a CAA semifinals weekend, really. Umass and Hofstra, there they are, each with one conference loss apiece. Towson and Fairfield still looking for conference win number one. One of them will get it when they play on Saturday. Let's look at Hofstra, coming off a gritty 8-7 win over Towson last weekend. Now 3 games removed from their COVID pause. The Towson win, a win over Fairfield, and a 16-10 loss to Umass and Hempstead. Looking for revenge this Saturday against a team they're not afraid to call a rival.
Them being our biggest rival, arguably, I think we're all pretty fired up, and especially since we lost the game, just to get another shot. You know, usually in normal years, we wouldn't get a shot. So they don't like us, we don't like them. We both know it. But throughout the years, there's just been some great games between us. I'm sure you guys have witnessed a bunch as well. So I think both sides are very excited. A lot of the sophomores and obviously the freshmen, you know, they haven't dealt with this CAA gauntlet that we're in right now. You know, there's sophomores who were freshmen last year didn't get to experience it. So it's good for the younger kids. For us fifth-year seniors who got it taken away from us, I think it's good that, you know, we get these games back. And like I said, it's 2 very good teams matching up, and it's going to be a good one.
He spoke to our Travis Eldridge earlier this week. As for Umass, they are also coming off a 1-goal loss. This to Drexel last weekend. That also a second meeting. The Minutemen beating Drexel for the first time, 13-7, following the second time, hoping to avoid repeating history against Hofstra, who they beat, as you know, back on March 30th.
Well, I think it's different because, you know, we haven't done it before. So, you know, obviously that's that. But I think it brings another challenge. You know, it's hard to beat the same team twice, and it's, you know, if you come off a loss, it's hard to, you know, try to beat them again the second time. So it's just the dynamic of playing them twice within the year, which is not something that we normally do. And, you know, now you have film on the team in situations where you thought you could have been better. So it just brings a whole nother dynamic into the second game for sure.
Yeah, so now you're running into that with Hofstra. How do you sort of avoid the same thing happening again? Are you doing something differently? Is there a different approach you take trying to beat them a second time, something you couldn't do against Drexel?
Well, definitely, you know, Hofstra's a really good team. They have a bunch of really good players. They're good offensively, defensively, in between the lines. They're very well coached. So we're definitely going to have our hands full, but we're looking forward to this opportunity. You know, coming off a loss is always difficult. So really excited to get after it Friday night at 5.
Get ready by seeing those conversations with Jeff Trainer and Bobby Casey on demand. You could also see the game, the rematch, 5 p.m. Eastern time on Friday right here on Lax Sports Network. Highlight reel guys, Ryan Tierney, Gabriel Prosick, starting your weekend off with a bang. It's live, it's free. Do not miss it. Taking a deeper dive now into that Delaware-Drexel matchup. In his last game out, Delaware attackman Mike Robinson dropped 7 goals on Fairfield in the LSN CAA game of the week. 3rd time in his career. 2nd time this season, he's scored 7 or more in a game. He leads the nation. 4.71 goals per game with 33 in the 7 games he's played. How about those yellow unis? In our other CAA game of the week last week, Drexel put on a show. Sean Donnelly scored this incredible no-angle goal on goal line extended. He also finished with 2 goals and 6 assists to earn Conference Player of the Week honors. How about that? Jack McCahey threw down a Goal of the Year candidate. That incredible no-look. Unbelievable and incredible. I put the words together. That one-handed goal. He got fouled and hit in the Dragons' 12-11 win over Umass. The 2 teams go at it on Saturday. Should be a great matchup. Drexel at Delaware, noon Eastern time, right here. Live, Lax Sports Network. It's another big weekend of ACC showdowns with Duke facing Notre Dame, Carolina against Virginia, women's stuff too. Travis and I will make our college lacrosse picks. Alyssa Perella rewriting the CAA record book again. The record she's sure to set when Hofstra faces JMU as Lacrosse Now rolls on. With 3 goals against Maryland last week, Penn State's Mac O'Keefe broke a tie with Zach Greer and moved into second place by himself on the career goals list. He has 17 this season, putting him at 209 total. Now just 3 behind Justin Gutterding, who scored 212 during his time in his Duke uniform. O'Keefe also has needed fewer games to do it. He's played in 61. Gutterding played in 75. O'Keefe and Penn State play Rutgers on Saturday. That should be interesting. Michael Sowers had just 1 point in Duke's last game. That was a goal last Thursday in the #1 Blue Devils OT win over #2 UNC. It was his 22nd of the season to go along with 29 assists for 51 points. Add that to the 302 points he had at Princeton, 353. He's in the top 5 in NCAA history. Sowers is now tied for 5th place with his current assistant coach at Duke, Blue Devils all-time great Matt Tanowski. He's just 1 point behind Rob Pennell for 4th all-time. Lyle Thompson holds the record with 400. Sowers and Duke play at Notre Dame on Saturday. We bring in Travis Eldridge now. Huge weekend of games. Travis, let's get right to it. We'll start with one of the biggest, Duke and Notre Dame. Who do you got?
This is a huge game. You look at what Notre Dame did last week after the 1-goal loss to Virginia. They go up to the Carrier Dome, looked great. Pat Cavanaugh was terrific. However, I got to go with Duke in this one. Pat Cavanaugh's great, but Duke has too many defensive options they can throw at him. Carpenter, don't forget him. Everybody talks about JT Giles-Harris. Carpenter's great on that defense as well. So I got Duke 14-12. They just have too many options offensively. I know Notre Dame's defense is good, but, I mean, Duke has about 5 guys that could take over this game. So I got Blue Devils in a close one.
See, if this was a tournament game, I am taking Duke through and through, but we're in the middle of a conference season, sort of a gauntlet for Duke. They've won the last 2 by 1 goal apiece. I am picking the upset.
Ooh.
Notre Dame has held their opponents to their lowest scoring of the season in 4 of the 6 games thus far. Their defense is legit, and I think it's a little deeper than the other defenses Duke has played so far this year. So I am taking Notre Dame in this one.
All
ACC,
right.
it's going to start getting the Duke a little bit, and they haven't looked as dominant here as of late either.
Yeah, a 1-goal overtime win against the second-best team in the country, not dominant. And this team is really, really good.
They are, and I think Notre Dame's good too. All right, let's move on. UVA, UNC, a rematch from a couple weeks ago, back on March 11th. UNC won 16-13. Who do you got this time, Travis?
Different location. I'm going to flip the script on this one. Virginia is playing better, and they figured things out. That overtime, the 1-goal win against Notre Dame was huge, and then they take care of business, dominant against. Look, Richmond's a good team, and they looked really good offensively in that game last weekend. It's a game that kind of flew under the radar because we're back into ACC play. I got Virginia by 1, 13-12. Dox Aiken's emergence is important in this midfield, and don't forget about the options they have, like Peyton Cormier, Connor Schellenberger, Matt Moore. They've got so much depth. I think that first game was kind of a wake-up call for Virginia. I think they get UNC back here at home.
I'm on the same page with you here, Travis. I flipped even the score. It's going to be 16-13 UVA. I agree. I think Dox Aiken has started to come into his own. We've heard Lars Tiffany say that Dox is back. He only had 1 assist in their first meeting, so just an idea of the impact scoring-wise. There are so many different options that Virginia has, as you mentioned. So I am going Virginia 16-13 here, getting a little bit of revenge on North Carolina.
He completely changes the game, by the way. Dox Aiken in that midfield just changes everything you got to do.
And Virginia's still good. I mean, let's be honest.
And defensively, they got good options, too. I don't think they let UNC smack them in the mouth like they did the first time.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit closer to start, and then UVA gets a couple late.
Agreed.
Okay, Loyola and Army go to the Patriot League. This should be an interesting one, and maybe a little bit lower scoring is what I'm saying. What do you think?
This is a toss-up, a really good game. I think the one thing that stands out to me about Army is last week they lose to Lehigh by 1.
Yeah.
But you know what they did at the face-off X against Sisselberger and Lehigh? They lost all but 4 face-offs. They won 4 of 27. And they still only lost by 1 to a really good Lehigh team. I think that tells you everything you need to know about how good the Black Knights are, even after the pause that they had in the middle of the season due to some COVID issues on campus. So I'm going Army 12-10. They're going to have more possessions. Bailey Savio is good for Loyola. He's not as good as what Mike Sisselberger did against this Army squad this past week. So I think they win more face-offs, and I give Army an edge here with what they have offensively. I don't know if I trust what Loyola has offensively from what I've seen in the last couple of weeks. Got shut down by Towson. Ever since they put up the 20-plus goals in those back-to-back games for the games against the Tigers, offense didn't look quite as good against Navy last week. I think Army's an even step up. I think Army gets them.
I actually disagree with you across pretty much the entire run of the mill here.
Okay.
Loyola, it's going to be low scoring. I got Loyola 9-7.
Ooh.
And I think Loyola is a better offensive team than Army. You look at Army, and
really?
If you shut down Nick Turn, it's kind of everybody else. Nick Turn can go off, and they got to get some other help other than him. Nick Turn this season has 38 points. Bobby Abshire's next. He got 15. That's a pretty big drop-off. I sort of like the pieces. Riley C now coming into his own a little bit more. He scored 8 goals this year. Didn't score at all last year.
They need more from him.
After transferring from Bellarmine. So he has come on as of late. And then you also have, of course, Lindley and Olmstead and all those guys. So I think that they just have a little bit more offensively, Loyola, to maybe score a couple on Army. And it's going to be a low-scoring game at that. So I think those pieces are the ones that bring them over the top. Nick Turn could score 5 goals, but I don't know how much Army's getting other than that.
The Towson game soured me on Loyola. The Tigers impressed me defensively, but the Loyola offense did not impress me, and I think that's kind of stuck in my mind.
All right, moving along to the women's game now. We had Tracy Wiener on a couple weeks ago. I asked her, will anyone come within 4 goals of North Carolina? No one has. My question is, will Notre Dame come within 4 goals of North Carolina this week?
No. I mean, first of all, you can't bet against Tracy. I mean, Tracy.
Right, Tracy Wiener knows all.
So I'm going to agree with Tracy here. If there was any team in the country that could have held North Carolina within 4 goals, I thought it was Syracuse, and it looked like early on the Orange was going to be the team. They're up 4-1, and then the Tar Heels woke up. I mean, this game this past weekend just opened my eyes to... we all knew North Carolina was good, but I didn't know they were this good. And what they did to Syracuse was just all-time impressive. I don't think there's a team in the country that's within 5 goals of them, and Notre Dame included. Notre Dame's really talented. Not even close to what the Tar Heels have, especially with Notre Dame maybe in a couple of years as all these players continue to get older that are freshmen, sophomores, juniors. Carolina's got 4th, 5th, and 6th years that have been there, done that before. They're just too tough.
I'm going on the number. I'm going UNC by 4 goals. So I don't know if I answered it or not.
Toss up.
But I think it's on the number.
So that means,
4 goals.
yes, there is somebody within 4 goals of UNC.
And the reason for that is Andy Aldave. She scored 2 goals in her last 2 games. This game's in South Bend. I like the way she's playing, and she just does more for that offense up and down the field than anybody else, and she's getting healthier, it seems, by the week. I think she does bring a different sort of piece to Notre Dame, and I think that they're going to start playing better and better as the season goes on. After a COVID sort of funky start, I think they're going to get back on track and losing to UNC, but only by 4. I don't know how that all works. All right, let's finish up in the CAA. Jmu Hofstra, always a good game. These two teams coming off interesting games in the last time out, too. So who do you like there, Travis, real quick?
Yeah, Drexel just beat up on Hofstra. That was a surprise. Drexel's really good. I got JMU by 1. I think it's low scoring, 10-9, and I think that's how JMU wins. They got to keep this Hofstra offense low scoring in the single digits. If they do and they slow down Perella, I think they win by 1.
I think it should be a really good game. I've got Hofstra by 1, 8-7. I like the pieces offensively for Hofstra. I love the JMU defense, of course, and they'll do as much as they can against Perella and Matera and Darcy Smith out there. And you can see Perella, 1 more point, and she'll be the all-time point leader in CAA history. So I do like just a little bit more Hofstra in this game. JMU kind of a funny win, 8-5 over Liberty last time out. I think that just Hofstra will have a better bounce back after playing Drexel. And I just think for both these teams, it's sort of a bounce back feel. And Hofstra will just do it a little bit better. They haven't beaten JMU since 2015, so I think they're going to do it here this week. And they've come close.
They have.
Haven't come close enough. Maybe this is the week to do it. Still to come, World Lacrosse Now talks with World Lacrosse CEO about growing the game on a global level. And speaking of growing the game, Kenya Lacrosse and the Philippines take another step towards some important recognition when Lacrosse Now returns. News this week coming out in the world of lacrosse. Kenya and the Philippines promoted to full membership in World Lacrosse. Kenya, the second full member from Africa. Uganda was the first. And now both will be able to compete for medals at World Championship events. Now, for a World Lacrosse Now, sponsored by World Lacrosse. Daryl Seibel from World Lacrosse talks to the organization's CEO, Jim Scherr, about what the sport means to him and looking ahead to this week's Play True Day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to World Lacrosse Now. I'm Daryl Seibel. It's my great pleasure to welcome today the Chief Executive Officer of World Lacrosse, Jim Scherr. Jim, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, Daryl, how are you doing? Glad to be here.
Jim, throughout your career in athletic administration, you have been a leading voice in the fight against doping in sport. You've been a leader in making certain playing fields are level and the health and well-being of athletes is protected at every turn. Talk about why this has been so important to you, the fight against doping in sport.
The heart and soul of the Olympic movement is about, respect for your opponents, fair play, excellence. None of those things are possible if you're cheating. You don't respect your opponent if you're cheating. Obviously, it's not fair play. You're gaining an advantage against the field, and it's not true excellence. You're cheating yourself, you're cheating the field, and you're cheating the world with your Olympic performance. And as an Olympian, that was especially meaningful to me. When I was competing as an athlete, I didn't really pay much attention to it. I think I was pretty naive. But as I started my career as an administrator in Olympic sport and hearing the stories of other athletes who just weren't able to excel in their sport because the rest of the field or a large portion of the field were cheating, or enough athletes were cheating that they couldn't earn rightfully what they had worked for. And that really became something that stuck with me. And throughout my career as a sports administrator, I've tried to do what I could to help level the playing field.
A number of notable things happened during your tenure, during your leadership of the U.S. Olympic Committee. One of those was the creation of an independent external agency to manage all aspects of testing for America's Olympic and Paralympic athletes. That agency is the United States Anti-Doping Agency. Why is independence so important as a concept in a successful anti-doping program?
The first reason we needed to set up USADA as an independent entity was so that the world viewed the U.S. Olympic Committee and its athletes as clean, because we knew the vast overwhelming majority of our athletes were clean. But they were viewed as, in many cases, not clean, because our anti-doping agency was part of the U.S. Olympic Committee structure. And
Yep.
people didn't view that as being something that they could trust and have confidence in, that we were actually policing our own athletes. Second, it did remove all impediments to any bias that might exist by the U.S. Olympic Committee managing its own anti-doping agency. And it also removed a lot of the burden that our national governing bodies had as they were adjudicating and or providing their own testing programs in many cases. And it's just something that if you're working day to day to develop athletes, build a pipeline and support your elite athletes, you're not an expert in anti-doping. And so we removed that from the governing bodies. And then third, it was an incredibly effective deterrent to doping under Terry Madden's leadership and now Travis Taggart. It's a great example of a national anti-doping agency that is a very, very good both deterrent and educator in anti-doping.
Jim, we're conducting this interview today to help celebrate the World Anti-Doping Agency's Play True Day. And that day this year is April 9th. The purpose of Play True Day is to raise awareness among athletes, the sporting public, and others about the importance of protecting clean sport and clean competition. And the theme of this year's Play True Day is, what does play true mean to you? So we pose that question to you.
Well, I think it's exactly in line with the Olympic movement ideals. You compete as hard as you possibly can compete to win, but you compete fairly with fair play within the rules and respect for your opponents. And if you don't do that, not only are you cheating the rest of the field, but you're cheating the public, and you're cheating most importantly the other athletes. And a lot of times, and we've seen it many, many times, where athletes succeeded on the playing field, years later, they either confessed or were caught. And the monetary gains or the fame or winning a few medals really wasn't worth it for them because it damages you personally. And I think that's a good example for athletes that, it isn't playing fairly, and it will catch up to you, and it will damage you personally. It will damage your family, your friends, your country.
I know one of the most difficult things for you as a sport administrator has been those occasions where an athlete has finished fourth in the Olympic Games or a national championship. And as you just referenced, only years later to be elevated to a position of third or second because of retrospective testing.
Oh, that medal ceremony where you hand an athlete a medal in a business office versus in front of on the podium in front of the stands who witnessed the competition, it's just a pale comparison to what it would have been had the field been clean. And that's one of the really unfortunate impacts of doping is when athletes get cheated and they get cheated out of their moment.
You've recently been named to a very important committee within the World Anti-Doping Agency. And I know that meant a lot to you, that appointment. Talk about that appointment and why contributing to the important work that WADA is doing is so important to you.
Well, it'll be a small contribution, but I've been named to the WADA Finance and Governance Committee, and it's a small way for me to help where I can with my background in sport and business. And I look forward to serving on that committee and helping WADA in its efforts to provide a deterrent and an education to ensure clean sport.
As World Lacrosse continues to grow and as the profile of the World Championships that are conducted under the umbrella of World Lacrosse continue to grow, anti-doping and drug testing will become a bigger and bigger part of the experience for athletes at World Lacrosse events. That's a positive. That's an important step forward for the sport. What's your message to the lacrosse community as this fantastic game continues to grow and attains a much higher profile internationally?
Well, we haven't had any positive tests since I've been here, and we don't want any positive tests. So it's really a simple one to the athletes and the teams and those who surround the athletes is continue to play true. Stay true to yourself, stay true to your sport, and play clean. A
simple message, but as you rightly point out, an important one. Jim, thanks for your leadership in the fight against doping in sport. As an athlete, there's probably nobody better qualified to really understand the importance of a level playing field and protecting the health and well-being of athletes. So thank you for your leadership in this important area, and thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Darryl. Appreciate it.
We'll wrap things up. One more look at the weekend after the break. On Saturday, we have a triple header of college lacrosse for you on LSN. It starts at noon Eastern time, Drexel at number 12, Delaware. 6 p.m. Eastern, William & Mary at number 18, Towson in the CAA Women's Game of the Week. And at 7, 5th-ranked Lynchburg hosting Roanoke. That should also be a great Division III matchup as well. So can't wait for you to join us all weekend long. Plenty of lacrosse to watch. Stay right here for all the updates. That'll do it. See you guys next time.